Guys, I am so excited and grateful that you are here today. We are talking about this idea of surviving versus thriving in your online business. And if we're just meeting for the first time, what's up? My name is Jen Casey. I'm a business strategy and NLP coach, stands for neuro-linguistic programming. And I work with online coaches who want to turn their social media into sales and start thinking like a top earner. So one of the things that we're going to be talking about right now is I wanted to share with you some quick things around surviving versus thriving. And the reason that I felt so called to talk about this today is because I started thinking about how I showed up early on in my business and how it was really a reflection of early patterns in my life. Things that were not serving me and actually held me back, even though in my head I was like, oh, I'm crushing it, I'm killing it, this is how you have to show up. And I was completely backwards in my thinking. I was showing up like an employee, showing up with beliefs around you have to work hard to make money. So it's like, how do we start to break that open? Because when you look at the top business owners or the most successful people, how do they show up? We can learn about what it takes to not just make money, but to run a successful company if we look to the people who are actually doing it and making a profit at the end of the day, because success leaves clues. And there are times where it still creeps back in. But what I want to share with you guys is, like, you probably have already, the way that we do one thing is the way that we do everything, for the most part, right? So when I was bartending, I loved being on service bar, which is basically I didn't have to interact with customers. I loved putting my head down and just banging out drinks as fast as humanly possible because I got to just focus on one thing. But I was getting a little kickback from it. I enjoyed it, even though it was really hard and I would be exhausted at the end of the night. So today I was really sitting down going, okay, well, clearly that was how I showed up in my coaching business early on as well. But I think it's easier to look at it from my bartending perspective, right? Any of you guys worked in the service industry, you know the turn and burn, hustle it out, being in the weeds, like all that crazy stuff. It sucks in the moment, but you also kind of get a little bit of a high off of it. And so I was really thinking about it, and I was like, I was in a state of flight or fight. I was in that survival state when I would be working, especially when it would get really busy and I would be making margaritas, making LITs. I remember they used to have a thing called $3 Thursdays, which I swear the CEO of TGI Fridays implemented just to torture the bartenders because the entire restaurant would be $3. So it was $3 margaritas, mojitos, and LITs, which meant we got tickets all freaking day long and it didn't stop and it was overwhelming. But I actually enjoyed those days, not because I would make good money, but because I could just turn fast and I made everything to recipe. But what would happen was I would go into that flight or fight response. So when you go into that flight or fight response, your sympathetic nervous system and your adrenal cortical system kick into high gear. And through your nervous system and through your bloodstream, they put you into, together, the two combined, put you into that flight or fight state. Now, there's no reason for me to be in that flight or fight state. That was a choice and a habit. It's something that I had fired and wired. Anything you do on repetition and you put some oomph behind it, you neurologically wire a pathway to show up in that way. And I was getting rewarded for it. Because I got to rip up a ticket, right? For those of you guys who love your to-do list, you get to go check, check, check. I get to cross it off. Or you see that notification come in, you see that little red colored dot, and it just gives you that tingly good feeling, and you just can't freaking wait to click it. You can't wait to click it. You can't wait to read and see how many likes and how many comments you've gotten. Why is that? Well, it's dopamine in the brain. And for those of you who are not familiar with dopamine, it is like the feel-good drug. And when dopamine works to help us, it is part of the brain that helps us learn. And when we do something and we have a dopamine response, it creates that feeling of pleasure, which is why it's so closely tied to addiction. See how all this is fitting together? So here I am, being in flight or fight mode. And of course, on top of that, from my childhood, my past, many of you guys have shared with me that you've had similar things, childhood and past, being told you gotta work hard to make money, you gotta hustle. So I'm like, okay, so that's my belief system. So that's how I choose to show up, because that's all that exists at this time in my life. Is this resonating for you guys? Are you like, okay, you're explaining my whole, like everything up until this moment, right? Okay, lots of hearts. I love this. So I have these belief systems, so I'm filtering the world through this, believing that I have to work hard to make money. I'm going into a flight or fight because honestly, I kind of dug it because I'm getting all this dopamine. I'm a little junkie now. I'm getting all this feel-good feedback, getting to rip up those pieces of paper every time I make a drink. And throughout this process, my heart rate is increasing, my pupils are dilating. I'm going through all of the physical manifestations of my body going into this state. Your veins restrict, your muscles start to tense, your digestion shuts down because your body thinks it's being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. But you're just like making drinks, you're just writing an email. You're just about to jump on a live video, but your body's going crazy and you're like, what the hell's happening to me? Right? But what also happens is your brain is able to focus on only one thing. It won't focus on those small little details when you go into flight or fight. And so I know for myself that when I would go into that state, I was able to be hyper focused. So I'd get a ton of shit done. So there were so many positives to me going into this state that I made that place of flight or fight, that high level of stress, I made that my emotional home because I was constantly being rewarded for it. And what's the result? Massive freaking burnout. This is how we get into that space of burnout as entrepreneurs. And so many people are looking at it. I'm seeing this pop up all over the place where people are looking at it through the lens of masculine energy and feminine energy. But when we really dig a little deeper of like, well, what does that even really mean? You know me, I love to go in for the psychology, the science, give me the studies that have backed this up and really help us to understand what is truly happening inside of our minds, inside of our bodies. Because we can talk all day long about the surface stuff, and that is really powerful and can make massive shifts. There are times where I just am like, get out of hustle, blah, blah, blah. But today I really wanted to go a little bit deeper so that you could understand what's really happening inside of you. And here's the thing too, and the reason I'm talking about this, the big picture, is because if we are showing up in our businesses from that space, we are essentially in survival mode. We are in survival mode. How many of you guys, either in the last 6 months or last year, have felt yourself shift into survival mode in your business? Maybe it's when you open up your bank account and you see your sales, you see what you owe in taxes, and you immediately go into that survival mode. When you've been in that state, just think back to that for a sec. Don't associate to that experience, but just think back objectively. When you were in that state, were you able to serve? Were you able to show up and lead? Were you able to get on live video and speak from the highest version of yourself? No, right? Because when you're in survival mode, literally, scientifically, parts of your body are shutting down. Your veins are constricting, they're restricting. And so how are you supposed to literally and also scientifically, energetically open up your heart center so that you can connect to your higher self and lead? We're not able to though, right? When we are getting so in our head, so in survival mode, and all of these, listen, it's not your fault. You do have control over it, right? Because we are in control of our thoughts, but you have been fired and wired to show up in this way because it's what you've practiced for so long and you've made neural connections. And so it becomes a game of being able to get back control by creating new patterns. And that's literally like you just have to repetition with a different pattern. You break the old one. Once you recognize it, you can rewire it and create something new. Make a new choice in that moment instead of allowing the chemicals in your body and the old thought patterns that are on autopilot that are stored in your subconscious mind to run you. Right? The body is the brain, the body, the mind, whatever you want to say, is going to automate as much as possible for energy efficiency. And so it is going to feel a little bit uncomfortable at first when you start to make different choices, because it's going to require you to make it conscious again, make it intentional again. Terry says, breakthrough. Yes, thank you. You're so welcome. Lynn says, I've been in survival mode since September when I left my corporate job, and that wasn't serving me anymore. I felt stuck in my business since, and it's hard to connect and be creative. Lynn, I'm so glad you said that, because we can think about it this way. Think about it like a mountain. When we are in survival mode, we're at the bottom of that mountain looking up. And all we can see is how far it freaking looks to climb. And all we see is all the trees and brush all around us. Right? All we see is all the brush all around us. And when we show up that way in business, bridging this gap for you guys, it's like we're in our problems. We cannot see beyond what is right in front of us. We cannot see beyond all of the things that are on our to-do list. We cannot see beyond what so-and-so did or what that chick over there posted on social media. And we get in our own way by creating all of these stories and all of this meaning around things that are really just facts. Like, feelings are not facts. Stories that you create are not facts. If someone else posts on social media, that is a fact. They posted on social media. And if you build a whole story around that by saying, well, because she posted on social media and we're in the same niche, I can't have a business, or people won't buy what I sell. Now you're creating a story. And if you repeat that story, it's going to become a belief. And if it's a belief, then you are going to filter the world through that and show up or not show up based on what you believe. Does that make sense? Right? So when we are in our problems, when we are in flight or fight, when we're in survival mode, we are in a very low vibration state, which means all of our problems are like freaking woods blocking our view from what is actually possible, blocking our view from potential solutions. And so what we need to do instead is elevate our consciousness, like you guys are doing right now. You're here. You needed to hear this right now for some reason. We've got to get outside of our problems. And the way that I personally do this, and so many of my clients do this, is by reconnecting with yourself. You are not going to find solutions by aimlessly scrolling social media, by watching another Netflix episode. You're not. Instead, you've got to allow yourself to take a step back and get quiet. If you are the type of person where you lay down for bed, or you get in the shower, or you do your workout and you just have a ton of downloads where all of a sudden, like, it's idea after idea after idea after, like, oh my God, gotta put this on my to-do list. I forgot to do this. I gotta call this person. I gotta respond to this email. And you're also getting all of these downloads. That is a clear sign that you are not giving yourself enough time and space to just brain dump, to just get things out of your head. You are juggling way too much. And if you feel exhausted by the end of the day, you are literally depleting the glucose from your brain. And that is a real thing where you actually become like overloaded with decisions that you make throughout the day. Every time you make a decision, even if it's like, do I click on this notification or do I continue what I'm doing? Every time you make one of those decisions, you deplete glucose from your brain. And so that's why you potentially feel fatigued at the end of the day, right? So what we want to do is give ourselves the time, the energy, the space to create that clarity for yourselves. So if you, like Tony Robbins says, if you don't have 10 minutes a day for yourself, you don't have a life. And that's a tough thing to hear for some people, because they have the story of, I don't have time. And I just want to ask you, is it that you don't have time, or that you just haven't made the time, or that you've wasted time? Because it's up to you to make a choice as to whether or not you are going to commit to getting your time back. Because time's an illusion, right? Things can go by like that. Things can feel like they take forever. So you've got to make the choice to commit to giving yourself 10 minutes a day to just chill the F out, to just allow things to come through you so that you can download them. And once you get things down on paper, once you're not all up in your head, once you're not taking in all of this content, then all of a sudden you will have more clarity. You will be able to see your life and your business as if you are standing on the very top of that mountain. And when you're standing on the top of that mountain, looking out over all of the things, you can see everything. And you're removed from the emotion of it, the emotional triggers of the day-to-day. If you get a refund request, you don't freak out because you see the big picture of the impact that you're making, right? When you're in the weeds, when you're in the trees, if somebody says, I want a refund, you're like, oh my God, this person wants a refund. My business is over. My stuff sucks. Everybody hates me. I'm the worst. No one's going to buy my stuff. I'm a failure. This is never going to work. And you spiral. But when you're standing at the top of the mountain, when you're in your vision, when you're clear on what you're creating, when you're in your purpose, and someone sends you a refund request, you're like, okay, that's cool. It didn't work for them. They didn't want to do the program. It has nothing to do with me. You can be totally dissociated from the outcome. And you're like, wow. So just to kind of close out, when we are on the top of the mountain, when we are looking down over all the things, we are in our vision, we are in our purpose, we have clarity, and we can objectively look at all of the pieces in our business, in our lives, everything that's happening. And it makes it so much easier to be dissociated from all of the little day-to-day things, from all the quote-unquote problems, all the quote-unquote mishaps and failures, and recognize how it all beautifully fits together in the big picture of what the universe is bringing to you, right? Like, so what would be possible if you stepped into that person, that like 6-figure version, 7-figure version, $10 million version of you that looks down at your life and business in that highest vibration every single morning? What if that was you? If you showed up in that way, what could you accomplish? Who would you be? What would you do? What would you have? And what would you be able to inspire others to be, do, and have? So that's what I want to leave you with. So I would love for you to just kind of think about that, ponder on that, and if you feel called to, journal around that. And really give yourself an honest audit about where you are right now in your life and business, where you can be showing up even more powerfully, because you're already powerful. The fact that you are even here, the fact that you are even in the realm of entrepreneurship means that you are already someone who is called to a higher vision, right? So I want you to just take a moment to honor that. And if you haven't taken a few minutes today to just honor yourself and your growth and celebrate that, I just want to ask you to put your hand over your heart right now. Take a deep breath in and out. And say out loud to yourself with your first name, I'm really proud of you. So I would say, Jen, I'm really proud of you. And just allow yourself to feel your heartbeat, because that's something that you probably haven't done ever, or maybe you haven't done in a while. Like, you are freaking alive. Forget how many likes you have on Facebook or how much money you made this month compared to so-and-so. You have a heartbeat, which means you still have a freaking purpose. So just feel into that. Take another deep breath. Just say again, I am really proud of you. And celebrate yourself right now. And this can be an emotional process for some people where things come up because they haven't said that in a really long time. But I just want to thank you for being here and honor you for being here. And if you found this powerful today, I want to ask that you share this with somebody who you feel may need to hear this today. Maybe you share it to your Facebook, you share it to your Instagram, and let them get this message today. So thank you guys. You guys are freaking amazing. I appreciate you. I love you. And I'll see you tomorrow.